Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Wine O'Clock Myth, The Truth You Need to Know About Women and Alcohol, by Lotta Dann, narrated by Gould and Sarah Mollo-Christensen. Introduction. At 3 a.m. on September 6, 2011, I woke up in my bed and immediately felt a raft of awful sensations that were not unfamiliar. My head was pounding, my mouth was dry, my stomach was churning, my bladder was bursting. I lay in the dark, feeling wretched, remembering that I'd drunk nearly 2 bottles of wine the night before, despite having told myself I'd have none. "Let's have an alcohol-free night," my husband had said as he headed off to take our 2 elder boys to Scouts. "Good idea," I'd replied, desperately trying to convince myself that yes, it was a good idea not to drink that night. It was a Monday after all, and I'd drunk a lot over the weekend. Any fool could see it made sense to take it easy. Not this fool. As I got out of bed and headed for the loo, I remembered that I'd raced off to buy wine while my husband and kids were out the night before, and had sculled, entirely on my own, one of the 2 bottles I'd bought before they got back, all while performing my normal housewifey duties. Vacuum the floor, glug, 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 close the blinds, glug, 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 get the baby into his jammies, glug, glug, glug. I was well practiced at this routine, having been a high-functioning boozer for many, many years. Shuffling in the half-dark, almost at the bathroom, a memory started to surface in my foggy brain, and it stopped me in my tracks. Had I hidden the empty first bottle? The thought sharpened into focus. Holy shit! I had. I'd hidden the empty bottle to conceal the fact that I'd finished it alone, in the space of an hour. Right before they'd got back, I'd crouched down and tucked it away at the rear of the pantry, behind the spare boxes of tissues. When they walked in the door, I had the second bottle out and pretended it was the only one. I changed course from heading for the bathroom and went instead to the kitchen to retrieve the empty bottle from its dark hiding place, gently placing it into the recycling bin so as not to wake anyone, shame flaming in my ears. Sitting on the toilet a minute later, I put my head in my hands and silently cried. This wasn't an unfamiliar position for me to be in, on the toilet at 3 a.m., feeling sick and guilty about how much I'd drunk the night before. But now I had a new dysfunctional behaviour to worry about. I'd lied. I'd lied about how much wine I'd had, and I'd hidden an empty bottle. I was a person who hid empty bottles, and everyone knows that's classic alcoholic behaviour. Why the hell had I done it? Why? I'd never lied about my intake before because, well, why should I? It was perfectly okay to be a nightly drinker. 5 o'clock is wine o'clock. Everyone has a drink at 5 o'clock. I certainly had for over 20 years. This was just how I lived, and all the messages around me, coming from friends, family, our wider society, and the environment I lived in, stated very clearly that having a nightly drink was a normal, acceptable thing to do. I'd always been led to believe that drinking alcohol was the perfect way to end the day, a reward for working hard, the trigger to relax. I deserved it. I'm a hard-working mother of 3, running a household, working as a freelance journalist while also studying part-time towards a master's degree. A busy, successful woman. Surely a nightly wine was a decent reward for all I was achieving. But my normal, nightly wine habit was getting out of control. I needed more and more wine to feel full of an evening, and struggled to go a single day without. I made deals with myself about how much I was going to drink, and constantly broke them. I was frequently sloppy, slurry, messy. There was vomiting and stumbling. My once normal habit was obviously progressing to something more dangerous. I'd been acutely aware of this and had been engaged in a dialogue with myself to try to moderate my intake, but nothing was working. And now this, hiding a bottle, a new dysfunctional behaviour at a time when I was trying to improve things. I could see where I was heading, and it wasn't good. I sat on the toilet crying, feeling utterly stuck and miserable, and totally alone. No one around me understood my inner turmoil with regard to alcohol, even if I tried to explain it. They were wired differently and would say things like, "Just have one if you're worried," as if it was that easy. So what could I do? I wanted to keep drinking, but at the same time I didn't, knowing it was a growing problem for me. It was a horrendous place to be. I felt shameful and pathetic. Normally quite an optimistic person with a kind inner voice, I had become a very negative thinker. I told myself constantly that I was weak for not being able to control my intake or change my behaviour, that I was broken. My self-esteem and self-worth were at an all-time low. This was my personal rock bottom. Then suddenly, through the tears, pounding temples and sick guts, I had a moment of clarity. A teeny, tiny thought popped into my head. The problem isn't me. The problem is the alcohol. A little thought, but oh so powerful. It repeated itself. The problem isn't me. The problem is alcohol. And then this. If I take the alcohol away, the problem is gone. And with these thoughts, I found a small sense of strength. I managed to tap into the tiny part of me that still believed in myself, that had some power. The problem isn't me. The problem is the alcohol. If I take the alcohol away, the problem has gone. I seized on that tiny feeling of strength, got up off the loo, and made a monumental decision. I was going to quit booze completely. No more trying to control and moderate, no more attempting to do deals with myself. No more. Alcohol was going from my life, and I would teach myself how to be a non-drinker. How completely and utterly terrifying. All my years I had been conditioned to believe that alcohol was a vital ingredient if you wanted to lead a full, fun life. Facing the prospect of never drinking again was like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into a black abyss. But I knew something had to change, and this was it. Alcohol had to go. I had no idea what was to come. Getting sober transforms every single aspect of my life. After my sad and shameful hiding the bottle moment, I go through a monumental turnaround. I quickly come to the realisation that for most of my adult life, I've been an A-grade emotion avoider, using alcohol to help me hide from uncomfortable feelings. Coming to terms with my sadness and anger, plus every other emotion you can name, is a painful and messy process. I slowly discover how to embrace fear and vulnerability, which enables me to properly connect not only with myself, but with all the people around me. I learn how to recognise the workings of my brain, how to distance myself from my thoughts, and how to ground myself in my body and the moment. I learn how healing tears are, and how pure joy makes my breath catch in my throat. I also discover new, authentic ways to relax and unwind, and how to socialise without a drink, or 8, in my belly. Mingling with others while sober is awfully awkward and uncomfortable at first, but, like everything else after quitting, it eventually becomes my new, comfortable normal. I realise that parties and events succeed or fail based on a range of factors that don't include the type of liquid I have in my glass. In short, I discover that I don't need alcohol to live a full, fun life. and that all the messages I've been fed my whole life regarding alcohol are complete and utter bullshit. My whole drinking career, 20+ years of it, was built on a vast array of misapprehensions and misconceptions. While all this personal growth is occurring and all these revelations are coming to me, I also experience a transformation in my professional life. Sobriety unwittingly leads me to discover my true strength, which is writing about personal stuff and what is going on inside my head. To backtrack, 2 days after my moment of clarity on the toilet, I decided that writing would be the main tool in turning my life around. So I decided to write myself a letter every day to keep myself focused and motivated, and to allow me to stay on top of my thoughts. Because I am a fast typer, I decide to put these personal letters into a free online blogging template, assuming that, given my blog would be one of millions, it would remain private and unread by others. I call my blog Mrs. D is Going Without, and pour my heart out into it day after day. I write about what I'm doing, how I'm struggling, my trials and triumphs. I write freely with no filter, unconcerned with what anybody else thinks, because no one reads my words but me. Until, that is, they do. As weeks pass, people start discovering my blog, reading my private letters, and leaving me lovely comments. It's incredible. Each comment feels like a hug, or at least a bloody good handshake. They empathise, sympathise, offer advice, and share their own similar experiences. I discover my tribe. No longer am I going it alone. Far from it. I discover that there are many, many people just like me, struggling to control alcohol, feeling miserable, stuck and alone, searching the internet for support. This is a phenomenal revelation, and helps strengthen my resolve to stay sober. As the months go on and my readership grows, an incredible community of support blossoms around my blog. It is absolute gold. After 3 years of not drinking, learning how to navigate the world as a sober person, and blogging my heart out, I get a very strong urge to tell my story more widely, buoyed by the feedback I'm getting online and the knowledge that there are countless others out there just like me. I suspect that, for each one of us finding online support for ditching alcohol, there must be many more who aren't. I also know there are likely to be many people who aren't yet at the point of seeking help, but are feeling stuck, miserable and alone, just like I was in the years leading up to my rock bottom. I send an email out to a publishing house to see if they agree I have a story worth telling, and they email me back to say yes. So, with a signed book deal on the shelf, I proceed to write my first memoir. I'm almost ready to submit the manuscript for Mrs. D is Going Without when I decide I'll add a list of helpful websites at the back that readers can visit if they want more help. In the process of compiling the list, I reach out to a woman who heads up a government agency that supports those who work in the addiction sector. We meet for a coffee, and it very quickly becomes apparent that there's a real lack of websites where people can join together to support one another with their drinking issues. Without having really planned on it, I blurt out an idea I've got about a community website where people can come together safely and anonymously and support one another. My blog is a bit limited in what it offers, I explain, but I get over 1,000 hits a day. Wouldn't it be great if those people could do more than just leave me a comment? Wouldn't it be great if they could talk among themselves? She agrees, and a couple of weeks later has pulled in 2 other agencies to help fund and support the building of a new community recovery website. So now I've got a new amazing website being built that is really going to help others, and a book about to come out. My publisher starts organising media interviews to help promote the book, and a high-rating news program, TVNZ's Sunday, decides they want to do an extended feature on me. I nervously agree and just keep reminding myself about the people I want to reach. To help with the nerves and feelings of vulnerability, I form a vision in my mind of an imaginary woman, someone in the same position I was in 3 years ago, who is miserable and alone, stuck in a boozy hellhole, not able to see a way out. I'll do it for her, I tell myself. The TV crew arrives and they film intensely over 4 days. I cry on camera recounting the story of hiding the bottle, and when they finally depart, I fall into bed, exhausted and emotionally wrung out. When the show goes to air a couple of weeks later, I watch it in my pink onesie, feeling nervous but excited. The journalist has done a good job, and she tells my story without overly dramatising things or making me look like a dickhead. The reaction is immediate. On the night my story goes to air, my blog, averaging around 1,500 hits a day by now, gets 45,000 hits. I am flooded with hundreds of emails and private messages, all saying a version of the same thing. I'm just like you. It's incredibly moving and strengthening. I reply to each and every one, telling them about the community website we're about to launch, encouraging them to join. The book is released and the website launches. New members begin signing up to livingsober.org.nz immediately. We soon have hundreds of people on our site talking honestly and kindly to one another, working hard to reassess their relationship with alcohol. We share, empathise, advise and support one another. It's all bloody awesome. Years go by and I rack up the milestones. 4 years sober, 5. I build a reputation as a recovery advocate. My social media accounts are busy and I get called on regularly by the media to talk about sobriety and recovery. I'm invited to speak at many public events, fundraisers and conferences. It takes me about 30 talk shows before I stop crying when mentioning hiding the bottle. I'm even invited to speak at Parliament. I write another memoir, Mrs. D is Going Within, canvassing all the tools I've been working on to help me deal with life in the raw, things like mindfulness and gratitude. Living Sober goes from strength to strength. We celebrate 3,000 members, then 4,000, 5,000. People, largely women, swarm into our safe and anonymous space, opening up about what's really going on with their drinking. For so many of them, their struggle is hidden, just as it was for me. Outwardly, they're managing their lives, but under the surface, things are not good at all. They're drinking more than they'd like, sleeping terribly, constantly managing hangovers, feeling guilty, strung out of control, miserable, conflicted, and low. With the kind and non-judgmental support of others in our community, many of them begin the hard work of turning their lives around. It's heartening and enriching to watch the transformations occur. Many people succeed. By the end of 2018, things are going great. I'm happily sober, my work life is stimulating, and I'm communicating online daily with hundreds of brave and amazing people who inspire me greatly. But I'm feeling unsettled. There's a growing concern nagging away inside me, and as time goes on, I'm finding it impossible to ignore. It's alcohol, of course, and the massive disconnect between what I'm hearing from people about their struggles with it and the lie being perpetuated by how it's positioned in our society. This disconnect strikes me as utterly crazy and hugely damaging. I almost can't believe it's going on. Can't others see what I see? Alcohol is negatively affecting the lives of so many people, women especially, yet you wouldn't know it by walking around. It's almost as if their experiences aren't real, as if my experience isn't real. To the uninitiated, like, say, a child or an alien who has just landed on planet Earth, you'd think alcohol was simply a harmless, ordinary commodity. But for so many of us, it's not. Where is our truth reflected? It bothers me. It bothers me that it's allowed to be this way. It bothers me that we've created an environment that doesn't reflect all of what's going on. It bothers me that only one side of the picture is visible. It bothers me that there's a huge amount of shame and stigma for people who struggle to manage this addictive drug. It bothers me that we've created an environment where it's really difficult for people to admit their truth. It bothers me that the majority of people don't seem to know what's really going on. It bothers me that I hear from so many women who are feeling so awful. It bothers me that they're desperate to change, but the environment is stacked against them. It all bothers me a great deal. And so I decided to write this book. This book presents the truth. It lays bare the situation we're in right now with regard to alcohol. It uncovers how normalised and glorified we've let this drug become, and unpicks the impact alcohol is having on our physical, emotional, and mental health. It reveals how the liquor industry targets and manipulates women, looks at what might be causing so many of us to drink unhealthy amounts, and it discusses what can be done if you want to turn things around for yourself. How this book works. This book is broken into 5 parts, each containing a broad theme exploring a different aspect of the subject of women and alcohol. Part 1 looks at alcohol's ubiquitous place in our society, how we use it, and what we believe it does. Part 2 analyses the many different ways that alcohol impacts on our bodies and minds. Part 3 examines the liquor industry's sales and marketing tactics and the manipulation that goes on, particularly on social media. Part 4 looks into the potential causes and reasons behind why so many of us are drinking. And Part 5 explores what it's like to not drink alcohol and how to shift drinking habits. Each of these parts contains chapters written by me, interspersed with stories from women about their personal relationship with alcohol, told in their own words. I have included these stories to reveal the truth about women's complex relationships with alcohol and to counteract the myths that are so often fed to us about how positive and uncomplicated our drinking habits are. The stories have been placed in the book at a point where some aspect of the woman's story relates to the topic currently being discussed, but in reality, every story could have gone in 5 or more different places. Such is the depth and richness of what each contains. Half of these stories come from women I dealt with through my work managing livingsober.org.nz. They had all previously shared their stories on that site, and when I approached them again to ask if they'd go into more detail about their drinking history for my new book, they all agreed. The others I found by putting a call out on my Facebook page, Mrs. D is Going Without, asking for women who were currently habitually drinking to share their stories. I was inundated with replies, choosing 10 from the more than 60 women who put their hands up, offering to speak with me. I interviewed each woman at length, over the phone or in person, recording the conversations. I then transcribed the interviews and typed up each story before emailing them back to the women. I invited them to read over their stories and let me know if they'd like any changes made for privacy, accuracy, or comfort reasons. Half of the women have chosen to use a pseudonym. The stories contained within these chapters are powerful, honest, revealing, and raw. They are as unremarkable as they are remarkable, because the reality is, if you talk to any woman openly and honestly about her relationship with alcohol and how it's played out across her lifespan, you will likely hear a moving story containing plenty of emotion and pain. Part 1. Our Boozy World. 1. Here, there, and everywhere. Did you know that half of the humans on this planet don't drink alcohol? Crazy, but true. Around 50% of the world's population never touches alcohol, ever. There are many reasons why a person might abstain from drinking, but for most of the world's non-drinkers, the simple reason they stay permanently sober is that they live in countries where alcohol is banned. Either it's fully illegal, like in Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia, or it's heavily restricted or banned for religious reasons, stopping it from becoming an ingrained part of life, like in Pakistan or Egypt. That's certainly not the case where I live. An ingrained part of life is how I would describe the situation in New Zealand with regard to alcohol. I literally can't go more than a few hours without bumping into some alcohol somewhere. It is impossible to avoid. Trust me, I've tried. Alcohol has infiltrated, enmeshed, embedded itself into every little nook and cranny of my environment, as it has in most other countries in the Western world. So completely has alcohol been embraced by our societies, it's become an accepted part of the landscape. We're so accustomed to seeing it everywhere that we almost don't see it anymore. When I first started writing this chapter, I made a big effort every day to look out for alcohol, either the real liquid stuff or images of or references to it. Crazy as it sounds, I had to really concentrate to remind myself throughout each day to do this. I was so accustomed to seeing it everywhere that I kept missing it. But, boy, if you really open your eyes and start looking out for it like I did, you'll become all too aware just how saturated we are in booze. Firstly, it's for sale everywhere. You can buy alcohol at restaurants, cafes, bottle shops, grocery stores, supermarkets, vineyards, breweries, hotels and taverns. It's actually pretty unusual to enter any sort of social establishment and not find booze on offer. Most places where humans gather have a license to sell booze. We've mapped it in Auckland and it's pretty much in every single retail precinct, the head of Alcohol Health Watch, Dr. Nikki Jackson, told me. Wherever there's a shop, there's a bottle store. In my suburb alone, you can buy alcohol from 9 different places, 2 large supermarkets that boast massive beer and wine sections, a smaller grocery store with a sizable beer and wine section, 2 dedicated liquor stores, 2 gastropubs, and 2 other licensed restaurants. If I don't want to leave home, I can get alcohol delivered directly to my door by any one of a number of online retailers or mail-order companies. You can buy alcohol at the movies, at the museum, at concerts, and at major sporting events. You can book a winery tour, go on a brewery trail, take part in a bar crawl, or attend an alcohol-themed festival. Beervana, Winetopia, and Oktoberfest are booze-based festivals held in my city each year. Oftentimes you don't even need to intentionally be looking to buy alcohol to end up having some. I've been offered a drink at the hairdresser's, inside the beauty salon, at the day spa, in a realtor's office, and on board a plane. School and charity fundraisers often offer a glass of bubbles as part of the ticket fee. Even events devoted to health and wellness often have alcohol attached. Wine meditation? It's a thing. So is beer yoga. A friend of mine recently took part in a charity race run by a large multinational company, a fundraiser for 3 emergency medical charities. The course was designed to finish at a winery so participants could have plenty of opportunity to relax. Props to the company for raising thousands of dollars, but can't they see the irony in attaching alcohol to an event raising money for cash-strapped medical services that are kept extra busy thanks to alcohol? 1 in 4 admissions to hospital emergency departments is alcohol-related. I had a woman tell me once about a conversation she'd had with a guy who was helping organise a charity walk, raising awareness of mental health. He told her he was in charge of organising drinks for the event and that he was thinking of offering beer to participants.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?